True channeling done the correct way, the way that is to progress into the new millennium, will always have a conglomerate doing the transmitting, not one entity. An individual entity should not be using the form for his or her sole use. Now perhaps they are part of a conglomerate, and only this one cares to be the spokesman, but this should be acknowledged if it is a fact. Most of those coming through singly have an ego problem and want center stage all to themselves. There should not be a distinctive difference between which member of the conglomerate the material comes from, and no difference between any of the three areas it comes from, which are, remember, your own past incarnations, the teachers and guides, and the universal mind. Remember, this is the correct meaning of the biblical term Trinity, your Trinity. The material is woven together in the computer of the mind and comes out as one unique line of communication from the channel. It does not make good common sense to put any of the names of those in the conglomerate on it. They are not interested in furthering who they were or what they were when they were on the earth plane. This is a proper way for channeling to eventually evolve to. The most successful way of opening this creative channel in all will be by actual hands-on creative expression every day of their life, beginning at the youngest age possible. The channel will open according to the humility of the person, their motives for using it, which are known to those on the inner planes, and service to humanity, sincere service over a lengthy period of time. To sum it up, the creative arts are the best, safest, surest, and reliable way to open this channel in both children and adults. The individual goal for all is a totally synthesized man. The goal for humanity as a whole is the brotherhood of man. The first can only be reached through the creative arts, which will lead to self-esteem for each individual, which will lead to the brotherhood of man. This is the middle path, the central channel, the balance point in all things, and it must begin to be stressed in our school system. We'll try to give some guidelines for those wanting to learn to channel. The simplest way to have people begin is to visualize the other side as something they are curious about and ponder on what the contact would be like. In other words, ponder on the field of energy that surrounds their inner being. As you start to channel, and the realm of information that is needed goes outside the knowledge and experience of your inner being, there is an opening of the channel that then allows access to higher realms of knowledge. In some cases, your inner being must reach out into these other realms, but in many cases, the beings in the higher realms will come down to this opening. Depending on how spiritually advanced you and your inner being are, this is what makes the difference. The more advanced you are, the higher up into the tighter vibrations this opening is. Picture the energy being diffused around your physical body. The different layers of your aura each become progressively tightened up. As you reach up and expand out into the ethereal realm around you, this tightening up continues. Your channel of communication progresses as your vibratory rate tightens up. Therefore, the first thing that those wanting to channel must do is raise their physical vibration through perfecting their bodies. This is done with diet, exercise, and health-related massages, deep tissue massage, and spinal manipulation. Bioenergetics is another field that helps. At the same time, the vibratory rate of the mind must be tightened. This will be done by study of spiritual truths, meditation practices, and clean thinking. No bad attitudes should interfere with positive thoughts. After a period of raising the vibration both inwardly and outwardly, which will take different times for each, for some it will be from several months up to perhaps several years, then comes the actual sitting down and concentrating on a question you have. It would be best if this question were one of general interest, not a personal question pertaining to some action you should or should not take. The reason for this is obvious. If it is a personal question, the personality will enter the picture and impress the mind with its desires, whether they are for the good of the entity or not. A personal question will contain the channel to the earth plane communication realm. A question of a general nature having to do with humanity as a whole will allow the inner being to need to open the channel to the higher realms. The beginning of channeling should focus on making that opening happen as soon as possible. Many people at this time are channeling their higher beings and think they are channeling the divine mind. This is not so. They have contained the channel to the expertise of their inner beings, but are not opening to abstract thoughts of the Creator. These abstract thoughts are what will stretch the mind. Sometimes you will channel only your own inner being because this is the knowledge you are looking for at that particular time. But most of the time you will go right on past it and contact the universal mind. There are many stages of this universal mind, and some of them come through as a single entity and some of them as a conglomerate. Many times it depends on what arrangements you made before incarnating as to what will be your point of contact. The most important thing is the desire to want to make contact, and this desire must be for your own personal spiritual growth, not because you want to use the channeling as a gimmick at a party and so on. This kind of attitude will only draw into you discarnate entities who will have fun with you. The stage of pondering a question about creation, eternity, or humanity as a whole is an esoteric stage, and the information that comes will be almost poetic in nature, and many times will not be understandable as a direct answer to what you were pondering. If you get a very specific answer with details and so forth, you should immediately rule this out as true contact, as you most likely have contacted a discarnate, and while they may not be using you to have fun with, this is not the level you want to tap into for spiritual growth. This practice of pondering a question should take place each day at the same time if possible for a period of perhaps 10 minutes to start. You do not go into meditation or make your mind blank. The doorway into the channel is through your own mind. Therefore, your own mind must be actively involved in the process of breaking through into the higher realms. This is where most people make their biggest mistake. They mistakenly believe they have to clear the mind and make it empty or go into a trance. This is not so. If it were so, everyone that does this sort of meditation would be channeling. The mind and thought processes of that mind must be involved. This mind is made up of your animal-based brain, your personality, and your half of the soul on the earth plane. The contact is made with the half of your soul on the inner planes through magnetic attraction between the two halves of the soul. When this contact is made, the connection needs to have direction as far as what to do with the contact. This is where the personality comes in, using the transmitters of the animal-based brain to give direction to the connection. Once the connection between the two halves of your soul has a directed statement to respond to, then begins the process of stretching and reaching, if the information requested is outside of the half of your soul on the inner planes. This is why it should be a question of a general nature, a philosophical question. Otherwise, the contact will stay at the earth plane level instead of opening the top of the channel to search outside of the soul's own experience. At this time, if proper preparation has been made and constant positive thought has been kept, you will contact the higher realms, which are the true home of your inner being. Your inner being has, you might say, one foot in each of the two realms, the earth plane communication realm and the higher realms. This is why the questioning process is important as to subject matter. The earth plane realm is subject to influence and interference from earthbound discarnates, and you must get past this stage. Your first few attempts may only make it this far, and it is up to your common sense as to whether you think you are in contact with discarnates or higher beings. As given, it depends on your stage of evolution. Those not so highly evolved will reach discarnates, who will then proceed to lead and guide a person into what this discarnate wanted to accomplish or finish in his life and didn't. This leads to all kinds of problems, including mental illness, murderers, rapists, abusers, and at times even leads a person to commit suicide. The inner being that you contact, your inner being, must be highly evolved enough to be able to shed these discarnates and proceed to step both feet back into the higher realms. But you must be wise enough yourself to follow your inner being, even though it may not be as exciting or even as interesting as what some of the discarnates can tell you. There are 12 levels of the astral plane. You work your way up through those 12 levels, which are backwards. Therefore, the higher you go, the less evolved the contacts you make, and this is the really dangerous period for all humanity. This is the area that scares most people off. This is the area that frightens the churches. This is a problem. Humanity needs to be educated about this area, warned of it, and therefore, by being made aware, they can, by using their intelligent mind, make sure they do not get caught on this plane by devious manipulating souls who are waiting there and studying before re-entering manifestation. After working through the astral plane, the process of channeling, which is our esoteric or spiritual journey, works its way up through 12 dimensions. It does this hand in hand with our exoteric physical growth through the 12 dimensions of the brain. As given before, there is no contact available with the first 2 levels or dimensions, as they have been closed off to humanity. Therefore, after skipping levels 1 and 2, and working through level 3 and then the astral plane, our first breakthrough into the second mind dimension, the lower right side of the brain, is made. This is where true esoteric contact begins. What has come before this has been psychic phenomena contact. There are inner spacemen and outer spacemen available to help humans on their spiritual journey. The inner spacemen are previous incarnations of everyone incarnated on the earth plane at the present time. This is not to say that they are any smarter or wiser than us walking on the earth, but they do have a broader view of events that are taking place in the world. The outer spacemen are those inner beings of inhabitants from other planets than Earth. Some of them are very much advanced from us, and some of them are not so advanced. It is best not to be in contact with most of these. We see spaceships of inner spacemen with our higher minds through our third eye. Our third eye is our power converter, so to speak. It converts their energy into our dimension so that they may be seen. They are the ones that can give the best guidance to our guide, our twin, our higher mind. The spaceships we see with our own eyes are not from our solar system and will not give help that is going to help the individual. They are of a lower vibration, those we can see without using our power converter. They are not dangerous or mean or to be feared. They just are not able to contact us through our inner being to be able to guide us that way. They can give information that is startling and scary, and this information can lead to science fiction movies and books, and in that way they are workers of the light helping with the awareness plans. But they are completely unable to help humanity find the God within themselves. There is nothing wrong with contacting them except the danger of not moving past them into those of our own solar system. They are to be found around all planets in our solar system, and some of them are from very advanced worlds. But those worlds are too far ahead of us to give those of us on the earth plane any help for our inner journey. The only danger in transmission from them is that it doesn't lead us to inner growth spiritually, because they can be seen with the concrete mind. They are much more believable, and people want to contact them because they can see them. This doesn't take as much work on raising our own consciousness as does the contact with our own solar system, our inner universe. Those staying in touch with spaceships we see with our own eyes are shortchanging their inner growth. This is the easiest contact and the first contact made by a beginning psychic, and it's okay for a while, but we must move on and go inward to contact those who can help us find our Godhead, the apex of our mind, where we will find our God within. When this has been accomplished, then contact with those in spaceships from outer space will be more meaningful and understandable to humanity. The inner spacemen are those who will be able to help direct and guide the spiritual path of the entities in incarnation on the earth plane. Also, they can be in touch with other inner spacemen that have superior knowledge in a certain field than they have. They can confer and exchange ideas and come up with solutions to the many problems on the earth plane. Remember that you on the earth plane now are more knowledgeable about most things than they are, but they have the wider view. Also, due to evolution, your intelligence levels are higher. This is not only due to evolution, but also to nourishment and improvements in health care and more understanding about the human body than your past incarnations have. The outer spacemen are those from outer planets who have the ability to be in direct communication with the people on the earth plane. Those from outer planets have no conception of what it means to feel something in every fiber of their being. They only can approximate this feeling mentally. They cannot feel it. Some of them are very much advanced from us, and some of them are not so advanced. It is best to not be in contact with most of these. Some of the more intelligent can help with our problems if we can form a unit of understanding with their way of life, which is very different from ours. There's not much in common ground to interact with them due to their different forms of energy and ways of moving around in groups of family life and knowing what each other is thinking, an openness that we here on earth cannot ever know to the extent that they do. They are wide open with everything. The new philosophy about channeling will concern itself with the individual right to grow and progress, each at their own speed. It will start with the schooling bringing forward the inner being of each person at a very early age. This will lead to the necessary intertwining of this inner being with the present personality. This is most important. The direction that some are taking now is turning their whole incarnation over to their inner being. This is not what is wanted or needed. Can you imagine what the world would be like if all these inner beings were walking the face of the earth in embodiment? There would be no progress made because we would be stuck in outdated ideas for the most part. What I want to leave everyone with is the fact that any information coming from outside the immediate area of planet Earth will not be as applicable to humans in their struggle for growth as that which comes from the conglomerate mind that has been through all stages of evolution on Earth thus far. It is necessary that everyone understand better how and when and why and where the most pertinent help for planet Earth's inhabitants can and will and should come from. The most